Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had yourself a great weekend. I had a great weekend, bouncing up and down, freezing my behind off, but loving every minute of it on the Gulf of Mexico. I started out in about 8-foot seas, 100 miles offshore, wind blowing about 25 knots. I don't know how the actual temperature was, but it felt like it was like 20, 25 degrees out there. But I tell you what, I guess I'm just a manly man because I actually enjoyed it. I actually enjoy having a little challenge in life beyond just commuter traffic. Well, we got a great show for you today. We got one overriding theme, but I'm probably going to break it up into several parts. But essentially, ladies and gentlemen, and if you live in one of these cities, you already know this, but our major American cities are virtually, literally, figuratively, however you want to put it, becoming unlivable. And crime is playing a big part of that. And progressive policies, as I will show you, have led to much of that. But before we go any further, I always have to talk about our sponsors. Our number one sponsor, without a doubt, we couldn't do the show without them, is BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited. You can get factory direct pricing delivered directly to your door on guns, ammunition, at least 100,000 other items, including protective gear, survival gear, knives, swag, you name it. If it's Second Amendment related, you can get it through Big Daddy Unlimited. And they're also your Second Amendment headquarters because they defend your Second Amendment rights on a daily basis by sponsoring shows like us and countless other programs. Look above the video no matter when or where you're watching it. You'll see links to our sponsors. Click on Big Daddy Unlimited. You will not regret it. Then we have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. Essentially what patriotthreads.org does is they are a total fulfillment center. They make patriotic themed wear, and they can help you with charity events. Remember the promo code JMT for 20% off patriotthreads.org. Recoil TV, we're partnered up with them, and they are jam up organization, man. They have their own YouTube channel. It's Recoil TV. Of course, we have our own as well. John Martin Talks on YouTube. Check it out. But Recoil TV is all about the Second Amendment as well. They do videos on the latest products. Check them out. You can't go wrong. And we're archived. Our show is archived, a channel within their channel on a daily basis. Check them out. All right, let's get into this story. I'd like to say I'm excited. I'm excited to bring it to you. But the story itself is pretty depressing. It comes to you from CNN nonetheless, and it's actually a fairly long article, which is unusual for them. I'm only going to hit the highlights of it, but check it out. The U.S. saw significant crime rise across major cities in 2020, and it is not letting up. And this is, so you know, Mr. Algorithm, because algorithm on Facebook is one of the most powerful people out there. We're determined to stay on social media, so I got to give due deference. This is a fake picture. I'm just saying it up front. I'm not trying to couch it. This is a Photoshop picture, but it is pretty telling, is it not? It kind of tells the real story of the Biden-Harris, Harris-Biden administration, because our cities are burning, have been burning. They're going to continue to burn, and the only question is how much and for how long. As long as they're in there, I think we got a problem. Major American cities saw a 33% increase in homicides last year. And that number is going up even more dramatically as this year unfolds. As a pandemic swept across the country, now they come to some conclusions as to why this is, and we'll get into that. But as a pandemic swept across the country, millions of people joined protests against racial injustice and police brutality, and the economy collapsed under the weight of the pandemic, a crime surge that has continued into the first quarter of this year. Well, like my listeners quite often chime in, it's a plandemic. Now, I'm not taking anything away from COVID. You know, I've had my own personal dealings with it. and I've talked quite a bit about it. So I'm not downplaying COVID in any way, shape, or form. But Trump derangement syndrome is real. And yes, one of the major factors is that we miss Donald Trump and his policies. Before the pandemic, that's why they call it a pandemic, hit, Donald Trump looked like he was going to win in a landslide. Now, he may have, because we don't say the F word here. We don't say that, we say something that rhymes with the F word. We say mod because of like algorithm and YouTube and everything else. Got to try to stay out there. Got to keep the message going. Support our sponsors. Spread the show far and wide. You got to be you got to be proactive if you want to continue to see conservative content through social media or any networks, period. Because Fox seems to be fading, and they're circling the wagons. The progressives are running the show right now. They have all this corporate money behind them. Did you see what? And I knew this was going to happen, but over the weekend, the Major League Baseball caved into the pressure about the Atlanta voting laws, or the Georgia voting laws, which are another big lie. And we talked quite a bit about that last week, and we'll talk more about it probably as the show continues. But Major League Baseball has caved and is pulling out the All-Star game from the city of Atlanta and Georgia because of the lies that the left are telling about the voter laws in the state of Georgia. Well, the bottom line on that, ladies and gentlemen, who's going to be hurt the most by the All-Star game being pulled out of Georgia? Georgians, of course, but working people, the people that sell the hot dogs, the people that sell the programs, the people that own the hotels and work in the hotels and motels, the Uber drivers, the taxi cab drivers, they're the ones that are going to be hurt by this. Coca-Cola's not going to be hurt by it. Delta, all these big corporations that back the communist China that are literally killing people that don't have the right to vote. When's the last time China had a free and fair election? But Georgia, oh my God, the fact that they want to have voter ID, that's the main sticking point in Georgia is, Coca-Cola, Major League Baseball, Delta, they all got to sanction the state of Georgia. But China, not so much. Business as usual. What is killing a few Uyghur Muslims anyway compared to not being able to give water to people in line? I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. But on with this story. 63% of the 66 largest police jurisdictions saw increases in at least one category of violent crimes in 2020. At least one category, which include, oh, by the way, homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, according to a report produced by major cities and chiefs association. So, what did they say a while back? Oh, people are only looting because they need some bread. And they're raping and looting because they need some bread. Just because a person's laying there dead, well, I got my bread, I'm okay. We showed that video last week, man. If you hadn't seen it, I'm not going to play it today, but you need to go back and check our Friday show, I believe it was on, where the guy just kicks this Asian, black dude. I only mentioned the race because they're talking about all this hate Asians, and it's white dudes wearing MAGA hats that are hanging people in Chicago. We found out that was total, what is Juicy Smellit or whatever his name is. We found out that was untrue, and supposedly a bunch of Proud Boys are walking around beating up on shooting Asians, when it turns out that a big black dude kicked this woman nearly to death on the main street in New York in broad daylight, and nothing even happened. This dude, keep in mind, one of the reasons why our cities are going to hell in a handbasket? This guy that kicked that Asian lady was out on a murder charge. He was convicted of murdering another woman. Guess who that woman was? His mother. He knifed his mother to death, and he was convicted of that. He was released from prison. So if he's going to knife his own mother, what do you think he's going to do to yours? I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. But our cities are becoming unlivable. When it's New York and LA, we got a solution for them, man. As you can tell, I'm pretty fired up this morning. Maybe we need to bring back old Snake Plissken. I mean, he saved New York, escaped from there, and escaped from L.A. We need to bring back, some of you young huckabucks out there might not know who Snake Plissken is, but we need more Snake Plisskens. And we got a few Snake Plisskens in Florida as sheriffs, and you'll hear from them in just a moment. But maybe we need to escape New York. And people are in droves. If you're escaping New York or LA, by the way, I don't blame you. Just don't bring your politics with you to Florida, Texas, and places like that. Whatever you're running from in California or New York, whatever you're running from, don't bring it here. Leave it down there. You can come to the free state of Florida. We're all for that. It's nearly impossible to attribute any year-to-year change in violent crime statistics to any single factor. I might could think of one. And the homicides and shootings are intensely local phenomenon that can spike for dozens of reasons. Yeah, I got a few reasons why. But the increase in homicide rates, according to this CNN article now, across the country is both historic and far-reaching. Kind of like Biden's presidency, right? Him and Kamala, they're historic and far-reaching. They're going to touch every aspect of your life before it's over. Believe that. As were the pandemic and social movements that touched every part of society last year. Well, and it says here in this article, it's impossible to attribute a year-to-year change. Well, I can think of one thing that changed. Trump. Donald Trump is no longer in the White House. Trump's life matters. Donald Trump's life matters. And he seems to be enjoying himself. I don't know if you've seen this, but he's come out with a new website. I think it's DonaldTrump.com, something to that effect. You'll find it. But it's kind of still in the works, but he's going to make public appearances and everything else. I got a little bit of bad news for you right now. I think this is just speculation. Well, I know it is because I'm the one speculating on my part. But if I told you about a couple months ago that if I had to bet, that's the thing about betting, you can change your mind. If I had to bet, I would think Donald Trump would run again in 2024. I'm going to hedge that bet a little bit because I've been telling you that Donald Trump has every right to just ride off into the sunset, enjoy his life, his business, his family, and everything else. I'm beginning to lean that Donald Trump, now that he's been out of the White House, might say, been there, done that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's not going to run, and I'm certainly not saying that he's not going to stay in the fight for making America great again and the MAGA agenda, the America First. I believe Donald Trump is in it for the long haul and will always be the true patriot that he is. But whether or not he runs for president again at this moment, and I would support him if he did, let me just say that, it's 50-50 to me. And I thought it was probably 80% a couple of months ago. But I think, once it's like anything else, once you get out of something, he's upset. He's kind of like me in the sense that I'm kind of like him without the, I got the hot wife, but I don't have the plane. Let's put it that way. If you're an obsessive compulsive person like I can be sometimes, and I think Donald Trump is as well, once you're over, you're in it. You're intense, man, when you're in it. But once you're over it a few weeks later, it's like, I moved along. And I'm afraid Donald Trump might do that. And he deserves it if he wants to. Experts, back to the article, experts point to what exactly is an expert these days, man? I'm an expert, right? If I say I am, I am. I could be an expert black, lesbian, Indian or something. I can be an expert on anything because the Democrats have given me permission last year when they coined that phrase, if true. So now I love that because when I say if true, then I can say anything I want after that, right? Of course, algorithm might say something, but no due presence to algorithm. Experts point to a perfect storm of factors: economic collapse, social anxiety because of a pandemic, depolicing the major cities after protest. Depolicing. We're just going to depolice your area. And crime's not going to go up. Remember there was a scene from one that had Samuel L. Jackson, one of the Die Hard movies, where New York, they had this explosion down there, and the little kids are stealing stuff on bicycles. I don't know if you remember it, but scene. And Bruce Willis's character says, "Hey man, what are you doing that for?" He says it, and the kid says something like, "There's no cops anywhere. It's open season. It's like Christmas or something." That's what's happening in your cities. Depolicing. Depolicing major cities after protests that call for abolition of police departments. Can you imagine that? Doing away with your police department completely as your city burns. It's just crazy. Shifts in police resources from neighborhoods to downtown areas because of those protests, and the release of criminal defendants. Like I told you, the guy that kicked that woman to the curb the other day got out on parole or probation or whatever after murdering his mom. So, I mean, you murder your mom, you might want to lock the dude up for life. Release, or maybe something else, maybe give him a little injection somewhere. Defendants' pretrial or before sentences were complete to reduce risk of COVID-19 spread in jails. All may have contributed to the spike in homicides. So they let people out of jail. Here's the thing I never could figure out. If you are in jail for committing a crime, they're going to release you because of the COVID threat. But we've had people arrested for not wearing a mask for COVID or not socially distancing properly or object to something. So if you're not wearing a mask, they're going to put you in jail so you can get COVID and then be released. It's absolutely idiocy, man. Idiocracy is upon us. But they never talk about progressive policies. Could it just be, and I'm just asking for a friend, could it be that progressive policies actually are producing results, and the results are murder, rape, and everything else has gone through the roof? How about just flat out lying? How about, I just told you about how Biden came out and everybody lying about Jim Crow in Georgia. You can't give somebody a bottle of water within 150 feet. Think about that. And they're just trying to say you can't give them if you're a political activist. But 150 feet, socially distanced by 6 feet apart. How many people is that? 25 or 30 people at the line that's just about to go in to vote. You can't actually go up and campaign on them like that. But how about the idea, so there's all these lies out there. No surge at the border. There's no surge at the border. What Ocasio-Cortez said, that's white supremacy to say the word surge. Well, I was looking at a story I was thinking about doing. How many people have they apprehended this past month at the border? 170,000, an all-time high. There's about 20,000 unaccompanied minors, locked up in Biden-Obama jails. They're literally dropping kids over the fence, throwing them in the river. I mean, but there's no problem down there. And where the heck is Kamala? Maybe she's shopping with these CNN people. I don't know, but she sure ain't doing the border. Her press secretary, when they asked last week about when is Kamala going to the border, the press secretary literally looked into the cameras and said, well, she's not doing the border. What the heck is she doing? But how about the idea that these policies, these progressive policies, could it be general lawlessness? Could it just be the idea, kind of the broken window pane theory? Just the fact that you let people get away with everything, eventually they're going to think they can get away with murder. I mean, I got a video I'm going to play you right now that just kind of shows you some of the highlights or lowlights, if you will, of Antifa over the past year in some of these major cities. It also includes the one where they're bashing Andy Ngo, which is just a great reporter. They fractured his head, man. They hit him with what they call a milkshake, which is actually concrete in a cup, and he's just reporting on Antifa. Let's look at these, the summer of love, so to speak, and Antifa, and maybe just ask this question: did this kind of lawlessness in our streets maybe give permission to do a few other things? Check it out. I think you get the picture. That ended right there with Andy. No, I hope we all could hear that. I just, so my producers know, I couldn't hear it, but I hope you guys heard it. But and I apologize for some of the language, but I guess that's just them being colorful. That is happening, or was happening, and still is, by the way, in our American streets. You know, old people. You see the old dude? He's just walking with a backpack there, and they just attack him and spray that bear mace or whatever in his face. Then they're beating up guys. A guy wearing a red hat. I don't even think it was a Trump hat. I mean, it's open season on poor old folks, man. It just is. But of course, if you listen to these progressive leaders, and I'm going to play one here in just a minute, the great Jerry cheeseburger hot dog eating Nadler or whatever. I mean, this dude was asked about exactly what you just saw in those videos, and this is how he responded to it. Check it out.
In Portland right now, there's riots.
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires and riots. They're throwing fireworks at federal officers. DHS is there. Look online. It gets crazy, Mr. Nadler.
I got to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, how do people like this continue to get elected? How can some dude like Nadler continue to get elected? Dude can't even hardly get into the car. But we've elected somebody to president that is like, you know, see nothing, do everything's fine here. It's going to be bigger and brighter. Your pocketbook might be going down, but everything is going to be the biggest of all time, the biggest tax hike in history, the biggest social welfare. Everything is bigger with Biden, including murder. It's bigger than ever, man. It is very popular. COVID-19 seemed to exacerbate everything. Officers sometimes had to quarantine because of exposure to cases in their ranks. So you got to quarantine. Police officers have to quarantine, but people bum rushing the border that are reported as high as 50% of them have COVID, at least 7% that we've documented. And not so much. They could do whatever they want. They'll put them in these buses, these non-governmental organizations, and ship them to a neighborhood coming to you. Now, I'm not knocking the migrants. I'm just saying that if our police officers have to quarantine because of COVID, but migrants don't, illegal immigrants that are pouring across the border, they don't. And like I said, 170,000 last month alone. How many? There's more caravans forming on a daily basis. And they even admit to us that I wouldn't even be coming here if it wasn't for Joe Biden. That one guy admitted on ABC News last week that he would have never thought about coming here if Donald Trump was still president. Imagine that. Donald Trump's policies actually work. That's why, of course, we got to get rid of him because, you know, the orange man is all bad. And oh, by the way, have you seen where now the reporters are starting to defend Joe Biden and telling you that you're like ageist or whatever? You make fun of his gaffes and falling down. But Donald Trump could be called literally everything but a child of God, mocked as being the Cheeto man, the most lying president in history, which we know is not really possible. What did Biden actually say during the campaign? That Donald Trump was the first racist to ever be in the White House. You know, Woodrow Wilson rolling over in his grave when he invited the Ku Klux Klan into the Oval Office, a Democrat, by the way. But, you know, Donald Trump, as I hadn't said this in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. I know we got a lot of new people, so hang in on this. But I have to admit that Donald Trump is by far the worst racist in the history of being the president of the United States. The worst ever. You know why I say that? Because he sucks at it. That's why he's the worst. I mean, what president that is racist against black and Hispanics would have the highest highest job numbers ever, lowest unemployment in the history for blacks and Hispanics before the pandemic? Black home ownership up at an all-time high. Black businesses up 400%. When you had Bob Johnson, hardly a right-wing nut, more of a liberal guy who's the first black billionaire that started BET, said that Donald Trump was bringing light into darkness, talking about economic light, in the neighborhoods that had never seen it before. So yeah, Donald Trump, the worst racist in history, because he sucks at it. He's terrible, man. But COVID-19 seemed to exacerbate everything. Officers sometimes had to quarantine, I got that, because of exposure to cases in their ranks, reducing the number of officers available for patrol. Investigations or protest coverage. It was difficult, according to this article, CNN, to impossible to keep physical distance during protests. Well, you know, it's okay. It's actually, remember when they said something about that the protesters, you know, it was okay to go and protest because it was like justified or something. I mean, we're talking about a pandemic supposedly that's going to wipe us out with 1 to 2% of people dying from it, but it's going to wipe us out. But it's worth a good case of plague if your cause is right. But you remember, as far as the protests, now we got people in office. We got Kamala, I'm not doing the border Harris. She's got all kind of nicknames. Remember when Trump was president, she was down there with binoculars at the border and just calling him everything but a child of God. But now she's not doing the border, even though Biden put her in charge of it. But Kamala Harris gave you the answer about these protests and what would happen if she got elected months ago on one of those late night talk shows. So check it out.
In major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I
Right,
had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not
now-
going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not, this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not.
And they should not. That is the key point. They're not going to let up, and they should not let up. So what's happening, the violence in our cities, it's just, it's just mostly peaceful protests. I mean, think about it. Do you want to go to any of these mostly peaceful protests? I don't know. We're going to show a little bit about that in a minute. But this is crazy stuff, man. I mean, think about this. You have Black Lives Matter, which is everywhere. And I'm not talking about the individual people that might have fallen prey to thinking that Black Lives Matter organization actually cared about Black lives. I'd love to see some evidence of that, by the way. But Black Lives Matter is a communist organization. Maybe that's why Coca-Cola and Delta and all are right there with them, because Black Lives Matter is friends with the communist Chinese. You can look this up yourself. You can take my word for it. I don't have the picture to put up now, but I put it up before. The founders, the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, which were women, by the way, black women, are all huggy-dovey with Maduro down in Venezuela. And we see how that plan wakes out. They're bringing Venezuelans and Venezuela to America. It's just crazy. And if you think I'm exaggerating Black Lives Matter to the violence and the justification, remember this gal who was a spokesman for Black Lives Matter after they had basically, what is it called, the Miracle Mile, I think, in Chicago, where they just looted and pillaged the whole thing. She went out in front of the local police precinct and said this. Check it out.
I don't care if somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes. That's reparations. That is reparations. Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. They're going to get their money back. My people aren't getting anything.
So you deserve a Gucci. I guess if they're not eating, they're not even dressing well. Well, I guess they're dressing well now. So let me get this straight. Slavery. If you have an ancestor that was African American or African slave, that entitles you to go grab a Gucci. I mean, how far have we fallen from, I have a dream speech? I mean, Martin Luther King's dream, I hate to say it, from what I can see, is dead. And I'd say that just saddens me, because I 100% agree with Dr. King when he said that we should be judging people on the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. But now this gal's saying the color of her skin entitles you to a Gucci. Just grab a Gucci, man. Wow, it's just crazy, man. In Chicago, speaking of Chicago, let's look at the stats there. In Chicago, homicides are up 33%. And keep in mind, most of this is black on black crime. I'm just saying. In the first 3 months of the killing babies, man, months of the year compared to in 2020, while shootings are up nearly 40%. And that's saying something. For the same period, year over year. In New York City, the NYPD data shows murders jumped by nearly 14% through March 28. The latest numbers the department has made public, while shootings were up nearly 50%. Well, the fact that they cut $1 billion with a B dollars from the New York City Police Department, or redirected it, however you want to put it, I'm sure that didn't have anything to do with it, did it? I mean, it's just crazy. I'm going to play you this video, and this is from last summer. This is at a park that has a statue, I believe, of Christopher Columbus. A police officer, Chicago. This is in broad daylight. They're basically surrounded by these mostly peaceful, people wearing black. They're so ashamed of what they're doing, they don't even want their mama to know who they are. They're attacking the police officers with spears, basically. Then I want you to see you may not catch it, so you need to watch for it. There's this mostly peaceful Antifa protester dumping out frozen water bottles so people can attack the police officers. They're throwing Molotov cocktails and fireworks there to these police officers. And you wonder why their morale might be a bit low. Check it out.
Disturbing. Police video captured a violent attack on officers who were protecting the statue of Christopher Columbus during a protest Friday night in Grant Park.
What began as a peaceful protest at Grant Park Friday evening devolved into a very dangerous situation in which mob action deliberately sought to injure officers.
The mayor decried the violence, calling those responsible vigilantes. The police video showed one person dumping out a backpack with what appeared to be frozen water bottles, which were then thrown at officers. Demonstrators also hurled fireworks, one sergeant suffering a broken eye socket from the shrapnel. Police said the PVC pipe used to hold the Black Lives Matter banners had been sharpened and were taken out and used to jab at officers.
That's not peaceful protest. That's anarchy, and we are going to put that down.
I don't want to hear her. Let's end it right there. That mayor of Chicago, man, what have you done to yourself electing that gal up there, man? I mean, she don't care about those officers. You can't tell me she actually cares about those officers. You can't tell me that she actually cares about black children getting a gun down in the streets of Chicago. I just don't believe it, because I don't care what people say. I mean, to a certain extent I do, but I care more about what they do. And when it comes to squelching violence in Chicago, that gal has done nothing. Can you imagine being a police officer in Chicago? Now, I'm not defending everything police officers do. I mean, my dad used to talk about it. He said, that there's no evidence, and I believe he's got some wisdom here. There's no evidence that there's more crooked police officers than there are crooked barbers. They just can do more harm, if there is one. And so, yeah, a crooked police officer can do a lot of harm. Crooked barber, you might just get a bad haircut. I got a good barber, by the way. She does good. But, she's got a lot to work with, or not much, maybe. She's very talented. But can you imagine being a police officer in a place like New York or Chicago right now? As I've told you before, we got an all-volunteer military, right? And my worry, and I'm not knocking them, some of their leaders I'm knocking, but I'm not knocking them. But as a matter of fact, I greatly appreciate them. But what if we become a country that is not worth fighting for? And I think we're on our way to that. We're going to be in trouble. Well, on the flip side of that same coin, so to speak, what if we become, as police officers, a country not worth defending? How much would you do that job for? How much would you charge if you were a police officer to stand out there and have bottles thrown at you, have spears chunked at you, have your eye socket busted? Just name it. How much would you think that job is worth? Not what they're paying them. I guarantee you that. So how long is it going to be? And it's literally happening right now, where police officers turn and look at their family and they say, it's just not worth it. And they're retiring in record numbers. We haven't even seen the results. It's going to get much worse over the next 3 or 4 years, even to the point that I talked to you last week on a story where the great mayor of Atlanta who's now running for re-election, has decided, guess what? We do actually need police officers in Atlanta, and is trying to hire 250 police officers after defunding them. But now they got money. You know where the money's coming from? From the COVID relief bill that Biden put out there. So Atlanta, I want you to understand this, ladies and gentlemen, taxpayers of America, and in Georgia, of course, as well, that the mayor of Atlanta led a thing with their council to defund police, get rid of police, reimagine police, whatever. Crime went through the roof. And the biggest problem, of course, is Major League Baseball. They had to get rid of them because of voter ID. Voter ID is just devastating, right? I mean, think about that. I'm going all over the map, but I feel that way today. Think about that for a minute. If you're a black American in Atlanta, are you really telling me, and I don't mean to offend, because this is what the Democrats are saying. Here's what, let me rephrase this. The Democratic Party officially, the thugs that are running it, the progressive left wing that has taken over that party in the city where Martin Luther King became famous, in Atlanta, they are telling you, if you're a black American in Atlanta, that you're just too stupid. You're just dumb and slothful and every kind of stereotype you could possibly think. Because you're too stupid to get a voter identification, a form of ID, a picture ID in the state of Georgia. And I don't believe that for a minute. See, to me, saying that a black person in Atlanta is too dumb to get an ID is the most racist thing you could possibly say, because it's all encompassing. So I actually have a whole lot more faith in people in Georgia, that black Americans in particular. I mean, you have overcome so much, and it's just a fact. You've overcome so much in this country. There were a lot of wrongs done to you. But America's not perfect by any stretch. No, I never claim that whatsoever. We all fall short of the glory. There's a book out there that talks about that. We might ought to get back to reading it a little bit. But let me just tell you this. I, for one, think that black Americans are some of the most talented, smartest, ambitious people on the planet, and they've overcome a lot. They can certainly get a voter ID, Joe Biden. I mean, it's just absolutely, to me, that is so racist to imply that they can't. Let's move along. In Los Angeles, homicides have increased. So LA, not to be outdone by the, the left coast or the right coast. In Los Angeles, homicides have increased nearly 36%. Imagine that, from 67 to 91 through March 30th. LAPD officer Rosario Cervantes told CNN, these three cities, the nation's largest, talking about Chicago, New York, and now LA, all saw significant increases last year in 2019. Well, I'm going to play you a video right now. I've played it before, but this is Jackie Lacey's husband. Jackie Lacey is the state attorney in LA out there. She was running for re-election, and she's black, by the way. Her husband is black, a retired police officer, and Black Lives Matter didn't like her because she wouldn't meet with them. And so they decided to go meet at her house. Check this out. This is Jackie Lacey's husband at about 3 o'clock in the morning with 100, you don't see the whole thing, but there's like 100 protesters in front of his house beating drums. And this was his response.
Right now, get off.
Good morning.
Get off of my porch. I will shoot you. Get off of my porch.
Can you tell Jackie Lacey that we're here?
I don't care who you are. Get off of my porch.
We will get off
right
porch.
now.
Can you tell
We're
me?
calling the police right now.
Good.
You can hear the drums a little bit in the background. I love that man standing out there in front of them saying, I will defend my home. I don't care who you are. I will shoot you. I will shoot you. Now, he was criminally charged for that, by the way. He was defending your home. You can't defend your home in Biden's progressive America. And I tell you, it is beyond just a Second Amendment right. And as I tell you about your Second Amendment right, remember our sponsors, Big Daddy Unlimited. Remember Recoil TV, all that. They're all about the Second Amendment as we are here. It's not just your God-given right as an American, your inalienable right. I would maintain it as an absolute human right. I don't care where you are. If you're a what do they call them, mugger Muslims in China, and they're coming to take you to prison camps where they're harvesting your organs, I wouldn't blame them for fighting with every dadgum thing they got, let alone guns. It is your God-given human right to defend yourself and your home and your people. If you lose that right, if you don't, let's put it this way, if you don't have a right to defend yourself, then it's over. What is the point of any civilization? Any of freedom has never been free. I appreciate Miss Lacey's husband. Police resources shifted to deal with protests, according to CNN, is one of the reasons, no doubt, of the jump in violence. Listen to this. One of the largest protest movements in American history, talking about George Floyd, was set off late May after a video of George Floyd dying under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer started circulating on social media. It was horrendous. There's no doubt about it. I haven't talked much about the Floyd case, and I told you why. I'm going to tell you again right now. Because to me, the only thing that, now I want justice, whatever. I hope they have a fair trial, the officer that's being tried right now. But the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter what the outcome is as far as it's going to impact our cities and our country. We're going to burn. We're going to burn no matter what. The only thing that's up for debate is how much. If he gets off, we're going to burn a lot. If he gets convicted, we're going to burn maybe a little less because there'll be whatever. All you got to do, and I take these progressives at their word. I'm going to play this video. This is Black Lives Matter protest. It was in Louisville, Kentucky after Breonna Taylor case when the officers got acquitted. And listen to what they're chanting because we'll come back and talk about it because this is critical. Check it out. We didn't get it. Burn it down. So in other words, in our new system of criminal justice, if you don't get what you want, you just burn it down. That's the solution. That's justified. You just burn it down. So the thing with the Floyd case, the only thing about our cities, we're going to burn no matter what. Because, of course, if they don't get what they want, we're going to burn it down. Protest messages varied from defunding departments, talking about police department, to outright abolition of police forces. Think about that. Literally debating not only defunding, but just abolishing police. Now, that's the thing. I wish we didn't need police officers. I wish we lived in a world where everybody was at peace and there was no threat of violence. We don't live in that world. We never have lived in that world. It's always been a struggle to be free, period. It's always been that way. Sometimes we lose sight of that in our modern world, but it's never been safe to leave the cave. Pandemic or what, it's never been safe. You have to judge your own risk, period. But this idea that we can have some kind of nirvana, but check this out right here. Protest messages varied from defunding department to outright abolition of police force, and sometimes violent, and occasionally led to looting and other property destruction. See, that's the thing we learned over the summer. You couldn't go open your business, your restaurant or whatever, with a key and let your customers in, but they could open it with a brick and take everything you got. That's no problem. Many protesters largely dismissed the legitimacy of American police. I like how they say sometimes violent and mostly peaceful. Remember this video? This is a CNBC reporter talking about how it's mostly peaceful. But I want you to notice what's actually happening around the dude. Check it out.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started, and there's a crowd that is.
Yeah, fires have been started. The place is burning to the ground. It's mostly peaceful. And a few fires. He's like a dumpster fire or something. Well, the whole place. There's other ones just like that. And so they say, don't believe, as they say, your lying eyes. I want to play a video right now. Charles Barkley, over the weekend, he was talking about, they had the Final Four over the weekend. I guess the main game is tonight. But he was commenting about issues with politicians and moving, I think, Major League Baseball. everything else like that. I want you to hear what Charles Barkley had to say because I think he is spot on. Check it out. At least I hope we got it. Here we go.
And black people are great people. I really believe that in my heart. But I think our system is set up where our politicians, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, are designed to make us not like each other so they can keep their grasp of money and power. They divide and conquer. I truly believe in my heart most white people and black people are awesome people, but we're so stupid following our politicians, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. And their only job is, hey, let's make these people not like each other. We don't live in their neighborhoods. We all got money. Let's make the whites and blacks not like each other. Let's make rich people and poor people not like each other. Let's scramble the middle class. I truly believe that in my heart.
Spot on, Charles. I think he's absolutely right. I want to tell our producers, because we only got about 2 minutes left, that I'm going to skip down and I'm going to play this video. It's called Clay County Deputized Gun Owners video in just a moment. We're going to close the show with that. But I want to read you this because I really believe this is critical in understanding what is happening and what is going to happen if we keep on this road with our police officers. An aspect of depolicing relates to low morale among officers as a result of defund the police movement. Baltimore Police Commissioner Harrison noted that diminished performance by officers leads to increases in violent crime as a result of officers feeling under attack. He goes on to say, whenever you have an anti-police sentiment, you can very well have police officers who are not as motivated to go out and really be proactive. I want to play Clay County Sheriff's Officer here, Daryl Daniels. Clay County is just outside of Jacksonville. And I think you'll see that we need more sheriffs like we have in Florida around the country. But listen to what he says about defending his officers. Check it out.
But across this country, not so much. I just wanted to take a stand with these men and with these women who feel the same way that I do. Lawlessness, that's unacceptable in this country. Lawlessness, that's unacceptable in Clay County. And if you threaten to come to Clay County and think that for 1 second that we'll bend our backs for you, you're sadly mistaken. I know what happens when lawlessness prevails. And in this day and time, God is raising up men and women, just like the folks you see standing behind me, who will have strong backbones and will stand in the gap between lawlessness and the good citizenry that we're sworn to protect and serve. So you can threaten all you want. You can say, hey, let's go to Clay County, or let's go to some other peaceful county where their problems don't exist, or not so much like across this country, where relationships are great and not strained, and where the people support their sheriff and support the men and women who wear the uniform. And you'll have something waiting on you that you don't want.
Yes, he's got more to say there, but if you hadn't seen that, you have something waiting on you. And he talks at the end of that video. He says, and if it comes to the point that my police officers can't handle it, I'll deputize every legal gun owner in Clay County to defend their home. We need more sheriffs like Mr. Daryl Daniels. I'm sorry. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook and John Martin Talks YouTube channel and share it with others. Support our sponsors. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great country because she needs it and deserves it more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.